Federal agents executed sweeping raids across Minneapolis, uncovering a covert network tied to the CJ&G cartel. More than 240 kilograms of cocaine, multiple firearms, and over $150 million were seized in a coordinated strike that revealed a level of corruption few believed possible. A sitting judge, along with officials across several agencies, had helped enable the cartel's operations from inside the system itself. The mission, part of a broader initiative known as Operation Northern Razor, exposed how deeply criminal activity had woven itself into local governance and everyday institutions. Over time, the investigation led to more than 130 arrests, reinforcing the expansion of the federal crackdown on drug trafficking. Under presidential directives, cartels were treated as unlawful combatants, granting investigators additional authority normally reserved for wartime operations. Before dawn in Minneapolis, unmarked vehicles approached the office of Judge Layla Maha. Agents moved with disciplined precision, entering the building and breaching reinforced doors in seconds. Inside, family photographs shook on the walls as the team searched each room with methodical focus. Behind a concealed panel, agents discovered 6 kilograms of cocaine and 7 illegally held firearms. A hidden safe yielded an astonishing $81 million in cash, packed carefully in vacuum-sealed bundles. Encrypted phones stored detailed records, shipment routes, coded instructions, financial timetables, and meeting logs. What at first appeared to be isolated corruption was now revealed as the central node of an extensive criminal network operating directly through legal channels. The judge's involvement stretched back 6 years. During that time, more than $60 million in cash and over $118 million in suspicious transfers have been funneled through 29 shell companies scattered across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Panama. Agents traced Judge Maha's movements on the night of several key transfers. Just after 2 in the morning, she entered a dimly lit community center, followed closely by 3 men, including a known fugitive wanted for armed robbery. No bags changed hands, yet doors opened and closed in quick intervals. Investigators believe these meetings served as silent confirmations for upcoming shipments routed through the network. Over 580 individuals, many with criminal records, had entered Minnesota through these channels. In just 16 months, the consequences were staggering. Dozens of shootings, armed robberies, overdoses, and multiple cases of forced exploitation tied directly to recruits brought in by the network. One forged identification badge from healthcare agency was used to commit Medicaid fraud, providing financial streams that helped fund armed activity. At dawn on Thursday, Operation Northern Razor launched in full force. Inside the command center, maps were covered with pins and color markers highlighting warehouses, clinics, apartment blocks, storage garages, and riverfront loading points. Many locations appeared completely ordinary from the outside, yet served as vital components in a vast web of cartel logistics. Before sunrise, phones across federal and local units buzzed with the call to mobilize. Tactical vans rolled out alongside unmarked SUVs, state patrol convoys, and surveillance aircraft circling overhead. The first strike targeted a former trucking depot in Brooklyn Park. Inside, agents discovered industrial packaging machines, sealed barrels, and pallets of disguised shipments. K-9 units intercepted suspects attempting to flee, while investigators confirmed that the medical supplies listed on shipping manifests were falsified entries concealing narcotics. Further south, a converted church basement was raided. Plastic tubs, cash counters, and coded message logs filled the hidden workspace. In Burnsville, drone teams attack. The continuing search exposed the depth of corruption within the system. Judge Maha had not acted alone. More than $60 million in unreported cash, along with over $118 million in concealed transfers, had flowed through the 29 shell companies she helped manage. Bank directors quietly approved the movement of funds. Police chiefs signed off on transport permissions. Every document, every signature, Every authorization had been used to shield cartel operations behind a facade of legitimacy. Federal records confirmed that more than 580 recruits had been funneled into Minnesota through these channels. Their arrival coincided with a surge in violent crimes, overdoses, and exploitation cases. Medicaid fraud, committed using stolen or forged credentials, became another revenue stream feeding the network. Day-to-day community locations, centers, apartments, small clinics, had become operational fronts where narcotics were processed, cash was counted, and encrypted communications were exchanged. As the operation continued, tactical teams swept warehouses, churches, apartments, and storage sites. Agents found large quantities of narcotics, packaging equipment, cutting agents, secret ledgers, and firearms hidden among ordinary belongings. Highways were temporarily sealed, while drones and helicopters tracked suspects attempting to escape the expanding perimeter. Digital forensics teams began reconstructing financial trails linking transactions to banks and officials who had approved shipments under the guise of routine operations. By the end of the coordinated raids, Judge Maha and her closest associates were in custody. A total of 137 individuals had been arrested on charges ranging from trafficking and fraud to the falsification of official documents. 26 officers and government workers were implicated. More than 240 kilograms of cocaine and over $154 million. Public reaction to the revelations was immediate and intense. As morning newscasts reported the raids, residents across Minneapolis and surrounding counties flooded social media with disbelief and fear. Crowds gathered outside courthouses holding handwritten signs, demanding explanations from officials they had once trusted. Within hours, multiple resignations were announced. County boards held emergency meetings to reassure the public, while state legislators convened special sessions calling for full transparency and oversight reforms. Banks implicated in the financial network faced federal indictments. Schools, hospitals, and municipal offices began urgent internal audits to assess whether their own records had been compromised. The question echoed throughout the region. How could such a deeply rooted criminal operation grow in plain sight? Judge Layla Maha remained silent as federal agents processed her and the officials connected to her network. Every piece of physical and digital evidence was cataloged with meticulous care. Analysts confirmed that the cartel's influence reached far beyond drug shipments. It touched financial transfers, transportation permits, arms distribution, and internal municipal operations. What had been uncovered was not a single corrupt official, but an entire system that had been quietly redirected to support criminal activity. Although Operation Northern Razor had weakened the network, investigators warned that the operation was far from over. Arrests, seizures, and prosecutions were already extending beyond Minnesota's borders. Financial institutions placed under scrutiny were now cooperating with federal teams, and the shell companies used to launder money were frozen, their accounts placed under strict monitoring. Communities struggled to process the scale of the betrayal. Town halls filled with residents demanding accountability, while local news outlets detailed each new discovery: cash hidden in ventilation ducts, firearms, SD. Operation Northern Razor became more than a series of coordinated raids. It evolved into a full-scale dismantling of a criminal enterprise embedded within official structures. Federal analysts worked around the clock, cross-referencing ledger entries, encrypted emails, bank transfers, and shipment logs. Every arrest and every seizure contributed a new piece to the puzzle, revealing how deeply the cartel had woven itself into legitimate systems. Tactical teams continued sweeping properties tied to the network. Surveillance drones circled former stash houses to prevent evidence removal. Helicopters tracked vehicles leaving high-risk sites, ensuring no assets could be relocated. Federal prosecutors prepared extensive charges, ensuring each suspect faced accountability proportional to their role. The list of defendants grew to 137 individuals, with accusations ranging from drug trafficking and fraud to falsifying official documents and facilitating unauthorized financial transfers. Weapons seized during the raids were cataloged in federal facilities. Firearms, ammunition, and tactical gear were cross-checked against national databases to determine their origins. Narcotics were weighed, sampled, and secured under strict evidence protocols. Cash recovered from safes, vents, and hidden compartments was counted and transferred under intense security. Every shell company connected to the network was placed under federal freeze orders to prevent further laundering or distribution of funds. Authorities emphasized that dismantling the network was only the first step. The underlying corruption that had allowed such an operation to thrive needed to be confronted directly. Teams continued tracing financial flows across state lines and international borders. Former officials who had quietly supported the cartel's infrastructure were now cooperating in exchange for reduced sentences, revealing additional layers of the operation. Federal agencies were united. Across Minneapolis, communities were still recovering from the shock of seeing trusted institutions compromised so deeply. Residents gathered in community centers, libraries, and municipal halls for emergency discussions about the path forward. Public officials outlined new oversight measures, while citizens demanded stronger protections against corruption and greater visibility into how decisions were made. News coverage remained relentless, documenting every arrest, every seizure, and every newly uncovered shell company. Social media became a hub of citizen reporting. Videos of raids, maps of targeted locations, and summaries of seized assets spread rapidly. The scale of the deception, officials using their authority to enable drug trafficking and financial crimes, sparked national debate about oversight and accountability. Commentators questioned how many other regions might be vulnerable to similar infiltration. Meanwhile, federal investigators continued working day and night. They analyzed hard drives, decrypted mobile devices, and compared handwritten ledgers to financial statements from multiple states. Each connection strengthened the case against the network and revealed new pathways the cartel had used to move products, money, and personnel. Surveillance teams monitored buildings formerly under cartel influence to prevent tampering or the disappearance of evidence. Tactical units remained active, tracking suspects not yet apprehended. Prosecutors continued filing charges, confident that the extensive evidence trail, digital correspondence, financial logs, video footage, and recovered weapons formed an unbreakable foundation for prosecution. Officials involved in the network no longer operated with the protection their positions once afforded them. Every act of complicity, every signature that had enabled shipments or financial transfers, became part of the expanding investigation. The system that had allowed the cartel to flourish was being dismantled. Operation Northern Razor signaled a new phase in the fight against organized crime. Federal agents emphasized that while the network in Minnesota had been severely disrupted, investigators were preparing for potential attempts by the cartel to rebuild. Task forces monitored communications, financial transfers, and shipment patterns across state lines, watching for even subtle signs of renewed activity. Officials who had once protected the network were now cooperating, offering detailed testimony in exchange for reduced penalties and helping investigators uncover hidden accounts and off-the-books transactions. Minnesota and neighboring states heightened security and oversight across critical institutions. Banks implemented stricter verification protocols. Transportation hubs increased inspection frequencies. Municipal departments reviewed internal processes to prevent unauthorized approvals. Community organizations encouraged residents to stay alert and report unusual activity. Awareness campaigns explained how corruption had taken root and what early warning signs citizens should watch for.